The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference. I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. You know, we have so many different guests on our show who are musicians, actors, singers, and all of them are very special. You know, people think that doing that kind of job is an easy thing, but imagine memorizing all the lyrics, you know, getting up in front of the stage and kind of making yourself heard. How wonderful can that be? Now, our guest today happens to be Ari Axelrod. Now, Ari happens to be, as I said before, a director, a singer, and a Jewish activist. He's an award-winning and celebrated artist of the Jewish performances with sold-out audiences. And Ari, you know, as I said before, one of the things that's really amazing is that you've been doing things with sold-out audience in this particular time, which is such a difficult and chaotic time. And I want you to let our audience know a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I thank you for having me on your show. I feel very, very honored to be here and getting to talk with you today. So a little bit about me and what I do. I started doing cabaret specifically about 7 years ago. I was introduced to it at the St. Louis Cabaret Conference. I was in school getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Musical Theater, and my university had a partnership with the Cabaret Conference, and that kind of opened the door for this whole new art form that I'd never heard about, and it completely changed my life. And since then, you know, like you said, I've been able to do shows around the country, in New York, almost always to a sold-out audience, which is never anything other than humbling, because I never thought that, you know, I would be up singing in front of a room full of people who are paying money to see me, that they want to see me. So it always baffles me and brings a huge smile to my face. And you know, I think the thing that has always, whether it's musical theater or cabaret, the thing that has always moved me about the art form, both of those art forms, is that they were built by Jews, by Jewish immigrants or descendants of Jewish immigrants. And as a Jewish person myself, I think that one of the most beautiful things on planet Earth is Jewish resilience. Yeah. That against all odds, we're still here, and we shouldn't be here, and yet we are. And I think that one of the most beautiful representations of Jewish resilience is Broadway, the American musical, show tunes, the Great American Songbook. And so what I do, even if the show has nothing to do with Judaism, even if the theme is totally separate from Judaism, I know that I am celebrating Bernstein. I am being myself, a Jewish person, unabashedly doing that which I am passionate about for the Jews who came before me, who didn't live in a world where that was necessarily, you know, easily celebrated. So that's kind of what I bring to it. I bring an unabashed sense of self. I bring, you know, a kind of undying desire to celebrate. Both celebrate the audience, celebrate the music, celebrate the writers, celebrate, you know, the connection between audience and performer. And I really don't know, to answer your question about how is it that I'm, you know, performing in these sold out audiences, even during this, you know, really unprecedented time. I don't have an answer. I feel I should, because it's a fluke, but it hasn't been difficult, and you know, and I understand how ridiculous that is, and I don't take it for granted at all.
Let me tell you something, Ari. You know, you say that you really can't understand how it's possible for you to have these sold out audiences. But, you have to keep in mind that when people listen to you, if you are absolutely one of the greatest singers or actors or performers, they flock to you.
Yeah.
This is not unusual. Take Feinstein, for an example. Has he ever been
Yeah.
without a full audience? Has he ever?
Well, I would assume not. I would assume not. I mean,
Yeah,
who would
that's right.
who would want to miss him? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're providing people with a kind of feeling that gives them hope. The
Yeah.
reality of that is that people during these times, and I've talked about this on many shows, it's been so chaotic and people have stayed home. This pandemic has hit the world and made a difference in people's lives that are not particularly positive, but
Right.
you are providing them with an opportunity to feel good.
Yeah.
And is there anything better than feeling good?
No, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the places that you have performed.
Yeah. So I have performed as a performer. I have sung at Feinstein's 54 Below in New York City, Birdland, Don't Tell Mama, the Green Room 42, the Triad, really kind of all over the Laurie Beachman, all over the city. And then outside of New York, I have done shows I'm currently, in my hotel room at the Hilton on Glades Road in Boca Raton. I'm doing 2 shows this week at the JCC in Boca. And then I've done shows at the New Jewish Theater in St. Louis. I've done shows at the Skokie Theater in Skokie, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. I've done shows in Dexter, Michigan, and then during the pandemic, Tovah Feldshuh and I did a kind of a duet show that we were commissioned by a joint, or I guess a coalition of Jewish federations in the Jewish federations of Washtenaw County, and then a couple federations in Connecticut. So, I've even when from my apartment, we were able to reach my apartment in Manhattan. We were able to reach people in different corners of the country, which is a real blessing of this
Absolutely.
Zoom era. But there's nothing like being in front of a live audience. And
Ari, I'm going to tell you a little story, and I think you're going to find this very enjoyable.
okay.
Years ago, I always loved to sing. Singing for me was like, oh my God, just fabulous. And one day I joined a group that was associated with Lincoln Center. And one of the things that we had to do was perform at Mama Don't Tell Mamas.
Oh,
now,
wow.
we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and then we went to Mama's, and everybody up on the stage, which was the group that was part of my group that was really, hopefully, going to be able to sing a song, forgot the words.
Oh no. Oh no.
And we ad-libbed them, and let me tell you, everybody in the audience knew that we had forgot the words,
Sure.
but they all stood up and they clapped.
Yes.
You know what? That's what people do when they listen to music. It
Right.
really kind of gets them right straight in the heart and right
Yeah.
straight in the gut. It's something that is so beautiful and so special. Now, you just said that you worked with Tovah Feldshuh, and I
Yeah.
want to tell you something, Ari. I worked with Tovah Feldshuh too. In fact, I interviewed her 3 times. Isn't she
Oh,
amazing?
she's the best. I just think the world of her. I love her so much. She's one of the most generous people I've ever worked with. She was very she made sure that I was taken care of. It was one of the first, the way that she guided and kind of mentored me throughout that project, and making sure that I got everything that I needed and she got what she needed, and just it was very I learned a lot, not only watching her rehearse and perform, but I learned so much in watching her interact with the people that were hiring us to do this job. And simply because she was being herself on purpose, she gave me permission to learn and take just an immense amount of lessons from her. I think the world of her. I really do.
She was a mentor to you, is what you're saying.
I think it ended up. I don't know that, it wasn't set out to be that, she was the mentor, I was the mentee, but the nature of the project we were working on, it was she maybe without realizing it, or maybe intentionally took on this very
motherly, perhaps.
But it had a maternal quality, but it was more professional. It was also maternal. I don't know how to describe it. It was just, she wanted what was best for me and wanted what was best for the project, and was willing to do anything to make sure that I was taken care of, and did it in a way that was so respectful. I mean, I think just by the nature of her being herself, she was a mentor, because she operated from a place of such profound integrity and respect and gratitude, that whether she was, aware of how she was, aware of, the fact that she was mentoring me or not, it felt like, oh my, that is how you are a person in the world.
Yeah.
That's how you navigate the world, from a place of tikkun olam, and just being a good person.
Yeah. Ari, you just mentioned the word dignity. You mentioned the word that makes you feel so good, and she did that to you. Now, I want to go backwards for a second. Now, when you told your family that this is what you were going to do, you were going to perform, how did they react to that?
Oh my God. Well, I really, honestly, I really started doing this because my brother was also an actor. He doesn't act as much anymore now. He's an award-winning playwright and screenwriter. But growing up, I was a chef and I played drums. It wasn't until kind of the latter part of high school that I really realized how much I loved this. But there was never any concern as far as my parents were, involved. They were thrilled. I could have done anything and they would have been supportive, as long as I was happy and treating other people with respect and treating myself with respect. So I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah. And what you're just saying about the word respect and honoring what you do, this is a very important thing, because if you're passionate about something, you really do it well. And I have a suspicion, knowing what I know and reading about you, that this is you. You're a very special man, and it comes across that way. No question about it, Ari. I mean, give yourself a little credit, because let me tell you, the other point that I wanted to make is, today, young people, you know what they listen to.
Yes, I do.
And my sense of it is that, could you draw a young audience, or have you actually been able to cross over and do things that the young people like today?
Yes, whether they are conscious of it or not. Yes, both in my clients and in the audiences that I perform in front of. I'll say this: the most recent show that I did at Birdland, it was in December of 2021. Larry Yerman is my music director. In the audience it was a rather diverse audience, in that I think the oldest person was in their 90s and the youngest person was 11.
Wow.
And there were people there who knew me very well, and people who had never heard of me. They're from Alabama. they wanted a night of jazz music, and they'd heard of Birdland, and so they stumbled in. But I sang songs that I love, and I offered them to the audience as a generous gift. And to me, the worst thing that somebody can say to me after a cabaret performance or after I sing is, "You sounded beautiful." I'd hope that at the very least I sound beautiful, but if that's the only thing that you get from a show that I do, I haven't done my job. The best thing that they can say is, when I do my Jewish Broadway show and people come up to me and they say, I was there. I saw Milk and Honey on Broadway with my grandparents, and you made me feel like I was back in the theater with them, and it's been so long since I felt close to them. Thank you so much. That, to me, that means I've done my job. And at this show in particular, the most recent show at Birdland, the young people in the audience felt things. Hearing My Funny Valentine and hearing If I Were a Rich Man, just giving people the permission to feel what they need to feel, think what they need to think, and experience a song in a way that is specific to them. I don't think it matters what age you are. I think that is universal. And if you tell the truth, from a place of being yourself on purpose, you will give people permission to feel things. And I think in this world today, there's not a lot of permission to feel things anymore.
That's right.
But what I'd like to do as a performer is create a container, and within that container, people can feel whatever it is that they need to feel. And so I think that whether young audiences are aware of that or not, they leave a show that I've either directed or performed in crying or laughing, or something shifted within them. And none of the songs in those shows have been on the radio within the past 30 years. Right. So I don't know that it is necessarily the genre of music that is the problem, but I think the solution to the problem of making old music old, big quotes, but making standards, classic, Great American Songbook, making that music applicable and approachable, we got to do it from a place of giving people permission to hear it through their lived experience, not what I want them to hear it as, but getting out of the way of the song and letting the song breathe new life in their hearts and their spirits and in their ears.
Yeah. It's so interesting to listen to you here speak about this sort of thing, about it's emotions. You're talking about right. Emotions. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that I in particular, and I'm sure this is the same thing with a lot of people, when music elicits the feeling of emotion, whether it is sadness, as you said, whether it is happiness, if it elicits all of that, there's nothing better than that.
That's right.
Right. And again, knowing a little bit about you now, I realize that you feel, you have something about you. It must be your persona that absolutely kind of recognizes that you don't have to do what other people are doing. You just do what you love.
That's right. And, that is absolutely right.
And loving something, is there any special thing that's better than that? I mean, to me, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you're really in the place that you should be. Now, let's talk about another thing.
Sure.
There are places that you've played. Have you found, if you say, you said, I believe St. Louis or places like that, do people in New York, as compared to people in other places around the country, react to your music in a different way?
That's a really good question. I think knowing what city I'm going to, well, if I'm singing, Another 100 People by Stephen Sondheim to a New York audience, I can set that up differently because they'll understand the song as their everyday lived experience, because it's a love letter to Manhattan, to New York City as a whole. There is another way to set that song up if I'm doing it in St. Louis or if I'm doing it in Chicago, where I can talk about, what living in New York means to me, and kind of bringing New York City into the theater and then starting the song from there. So I think it depends. That's one example. A song about New York will land differently to a New York audience than, an audience in St. Louis. But I think when it comes to specifically Jewish Broadway, specifically that show, every audience that I have encountered, even the audience in Dexter, Michigan, was predominantly not Jewish. And people came up to me after the show and said, I don't feel like I got any less of this show because I'm not Jewish. I learned so much. I have a new appreciation for this kind of music, and I'm also not Jewish. But I think the themes of Judaism and this music, regardless of whether you're in New York or Chicago or St. Louis or Boca, people know My Funny Valentine. People know My Ship. They know God Bless America. And if it's a Jewish audience in particular, they understand what it means to embrace and celebrate Jewish resilience and Jewish tradition. And so I don't know. I think other than just songs that take place in New York, those hit differently for New York audience. But other than that, I think I'm so pleased that it's been a really universal reaction.
Yeah, I understand. Again, I asked you that question because I was just curious. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to know how people react to your music, but it really, it sounds to me like music just really makes people feel good. And
Yeah.
if, I said that before. Now, if I could put you on the spot for a minute,
Sure.
I have a feeling you know what I'm going to ask you, but could you just give us a little tidbit of one of the songs, and anything that you want to sing would really be wonderful.
Totally. Like a song from the Jewish Broadway show, a song from
Sure, any song that you wish.
this song, which happens to be one of my all-time favorites. I think, given what's going on in Ukraine right now, and
Good.
watching what's happening to the Jews of Odessa and Kiev again, I think that this song is right on the money for what I wish for all of us. There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air waits for us somewhere. There's a time for us, someday a time for us, time together with time to spare, time to learn, time to care. Somehow, someday, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving somewhere.
Now I know why you sell out your audiences. Not only that, you talked about what's going on right now, and
Yeah.
it's such a scary time.
Yeah.
And what is better than to be able to really sing, act, do all these different things, because people are really suffering, and people are also, they really don't know what's going to happen. And somehow music stays with you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
So, Ari, what I'd like to know, and I want you to tell our audience, how do they see you, what's your next gig, where
Sure.
you're going, and a little bit how they get in touch with you.
Perfect. Great question. The best place to stay up to date is my website, which is www.ariaxelrod.com. Also my Instagram, my Facebook, which is just at Ari Axelrod. But upcoming, so in a week from, what's the date today? A week from not a week, a month from tomorrow is my birthday. And I will be in New York doing my show, A Celebration of Jewish Broadway, which will this time be a birthday celebration of Jewish Broadway. And we're doing it, it's Larry Yerman and I at the Green Room 42 at 9:30 p.m. And then on June 30th, Larry and I are doing an encore performance of our show, Ari's Arias, at the Birdland Theater, and we'll be recording that performance as a live album. So if you'd like to be, cemented in the history of, then by all means come and there will be documented evidence that we shared a room together for the remainder of time.
Well, you might have a lot of people coming and they want to share it with you, so you better be careful because
I'd be honored. And if they come, then if whoever is listening, if you come to any of the shows that I have coming up, I dare you, I beg you, stay after, come up to me and say, I heard you on Susan Brender's show. I will give you a big hug. If you're hugging, who knows anymore if we're hugging, but if you come, not only will you get an evening of music and singing, but you'll also get a big hug from me at the end.
Well, guess what? I'm going to get a big hug from you very soon. And
You will.
I absolutely want it. And I'm so delighted that you've been on my show. I have to say this again and again. You are somebody very special. And thank you so much for singing, because I wanted people to realize what they know can be very special for them if they listen to you. So with that said, thank you so much for being on the Susan Brender Show. It's really been a pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Susan. I'm so grateful.